Hat tip, my friend Adam sent this to me this morning via text. Very good guy. Was an agent with him. Very, very talented guy. And he sent this to me this morning, and it's one of the best pieces I've ever seen. And it explains what I was trying to explain on Fox News the other night about why sometimes police officers, as we saw in the incident in Brooklyn Center outside of Minneapolis, the officer Kim Potter, who shoots Daunte Wright. Daunte Wright later dies. She says at one point, taser, taser. Now, officers are trained to say taser when they deploy the taser because you can potentially electrocute other people. So you say taser, so they'll back away. She says taser. Well, what's the problem? She says taser. She doesn't have her taser. She has her firearm. And a lot of people like Geraldo and others with no experience in policing said, well, how can that be? Taser's a different color. It's a different weight. It's a different handle, and it's on a different side. How can you possibly screw that up? Well, again, we're not doing emotion here. We're going to do facts. There's a reason people screw it up, as evidenced by this article in Force Science in my newsletter that I really encourage you to read. Very short, but very well done. It's called Unintended, a theory of taser/weapon confusion. Very well done. By the way, one show note, Joe asked me to explain, and he's right. He sent me a text on a show. He said, listen, explain bladed off. Bladed off, what I was saying in the beginning while analyzing that video, means he's not facing you, the subject, means he's showing you only one side of his body. Bladed off so that you can't see his right arm. So in case some of you mistook that in the beginning, that's what I was trying to get at. But an important point. So here's this article by Force Science Institute. Again, why do police officers under stress sometimes, this is very rare, sometimes grab a firearm rather than the taser, which is on the other side of their body? Listen, this is necessary material right now. It's called a capture error. A capture error can occur when an infrequent action, like drawing a taser, is non-consciously substituted by a similar, more familiar, and more practiced action like drawing a firearm. I'll translate this in a minute. Research has shown that people are particularly susceptible to this type of error when they're occupied by other mental processes. For police, these processes might involve time-compressed threat assessments, the need for immediate action, or simultaneous efforts to communicate, including verbal warnings and de-escalation attempts. Let me translate for you what that means. A firearm is typically on your right side if you're right-hand dominant. Most people are. The taser is on the other side, either crossed straw or some other configuration. Some keep it on their vest. If the taser is in a different spot, either on the chest, on the opposite side left hip, from the firearm, why would you possibly go for your firearm and think it was your taser? Because, folks, when you replace a very repetitive action police officers have done thousands of times, pull their firearm. Dan, officers don't pull firearms in the street thousands of times. Yes, you are right. They don't. So how is it repetitive action? You just said they don't pull it in the street because they pull it in training. I would estimate in the modern police academies that an officer is trained to go to his gun belt or her gun belt on the right side of their body at a rate of probably 1,000 to 1 for as many times they train to go to the left side of the body, maybe a little less, maybe 100 to 1, to grab the taser. So if you're doing this 100 times for every one time you do this, why is it shocking that sometimes, and this is rare, I want to be very, going for the firearm instead of the taser when you intend to deploy a taser. The woman said taser, taser is very rare, but it does happen. That is one of the reasons under stress, your body will default to the most familiar action, which is going to the right side, even if you think you're getting your taser. Dan, come on. You're just running cover for police officers. Am I? I'll give you an example in a minute, and maybe it'll make more sense. Because I know, I'm not saying my audience, but there's some people, especially liberals who listen to my show, that want to instantly blame police for everything. And they think every accident is attributable to a criminal motive. People looking to have Kim Potter, the officer involved in the Brooklyn Center shooting, convicted immediately without even hearing her story. Again, there's no good outcome. Daunte Wright is dead. There are bad and worse outcomes. What does it say to police officers if they make a mistake that they go to jail forever without even hearing their story? Does that make any sense to you? Before I get to that, the explanation as to why the real world example, that'll make more sense. I want to talk about this selective attention because it ties back to the beginning of the show. Folks, I've been in foot pursuits. I've been there. Thousands of cops have been. There's nothing new. It's not a sob story. It happens all the time, okay? Sadly, it's not unusual. You can't see what's anything but when your peripheral vision shuts down. You selectively focus on the threat, a knife, a firearm. You don't see anything. The guy's face could turn. He could be under demonic possession. You wouldn't even notice. All you notice is the firearm or the knife. If this was the knife, that's all you see. This is it. Nothing else. Not the fan, not the computer, not the microphone. That's it. Because you are selectively paying attention to the threat. Here, described beautifully in this Force Science piece. Quote, when a person is intently paying attention to what they perceive as a threat, it's expected that they will not perceive the other stimuli around them. That includes factors we would expect someone to notice under calmer circumstances. Factors like the weight, shape, and color of a taser as compared to a full-size firearm. Folks, under extreme stress, you will default to your lowest, not your highest level of training. Your brain is not processing information like you and I are right now, you listening in your car, hopefully in a very calm, or listening in your house. Have your headphones in. We're talking, even though it's my Queen's voice, in a very calm voice. This is calm for Queens, by the way. Some of you say I yell a lot on the mic. I'm very sorry. I don't mean to bother you. That's just, you grew up from Queens. This is a normal tone. When we're calm, our heart rate is 50 to 70, even up to 100. We can think straight. You'd pull out a firearm and say, this is a firearm, not the taser. It feels different. It looks different. It's on the wrong side. As your heart rate goes up, as your peripheral vision shuts down, as the subject starts to fight you and you're fearing for your own life, you know he's got a history with firearms. You think he could be grabbing a firearm as he gets in the car. I'm asking you to get in the officer's head. Does it now make sense? I'm not justifying anything. They'll all have their day in court. I'm simply suggesting to you, does it now make sense how you would default to lower and lower and lower levels of training, and your first instinct would be to do what's familiar and to do this, which you've done 100 times for every one time you've done that, to grab the taser. You'd go to your right side. Sorry, I realize I have an audio audience. Instead of your left side where the taser is. Oh, come on. You're just making excuses. Am I? Let me give you a real world example from this piece, because this happened to me quite a bit. A lot of you younger folks, Guy, definitely. Joe, not so much, and me. We grew up with regular standard brakes on a car. What does this have to do with going for a taser rather than a gun? I'll get to it in a second. A lot of you younger listeners who listen to my show, you've never known anything but anti-lock brakes. They teach you in driving school to do what? To slam on the brakes and hold them down, because the anti-lock braking system pumps itself on the rotor and prevents the wheels from locking up. That's what it does. It does it, in microseconds. When we learned to drive, ladies and gentlemen, me at 46, I know Joe, I know my wife too, they didn't have anti-lock brakes. If, God forbid, you got in a skid situation on ice, what did they tell you? Pump the brakes yourself with your foot, which is obviously thousands of times slower than a machine computer determining how to do it. You'd have to pump the brakes. Hit, let up, hit, let up, hit, let up, hit, let up, so that the tires wouldn't skid and lock up. Well, folks, when us older drivers had to transition to ABS, everything we've been taught in an emergency, when we resort to our lowest levels of training, tractor trailer stops in front of you, you're doing 90 miles an hour, peripheral vision shuts down, heart rate goes up right away, pupils dilate, you panic, heart rate goes up. You resorted to your lowest level of training, which if you grew up training to pump the brakes, you pumped your ABS brakes, which effectively made them useless. How? You knew you had ABS brakes. You bought the car. You may say, yeah, the officer knew her gun was on the right side. You knew the car had ABS brakes too. It was on the window sticker when you bought the car. So why did you pump the brakes when they specifically tell you not to? Go to the Force Sciences piece and maybe it'll make sense. Quote, after transitioning from older power brakes to the new automatic brakes, police officers in the 1980s were involved in an increased number of crashes during high-speed driving because they reverted to their more familiar braking habits under stress, i.e. pumping the brakes. In doing so, the officers effectively defeated the automatic braking system operation and lost control of their vehicles. This error occurred despite the officers knowing the new brakes required a different manipulation. I'm not justifying anything. I'm just trying to explain to you that if you think what I'm telling you about this resorting to the lowest level of training, a repetitive thing you've done in the past multiple times, despite knowing in your brain when you're conscious and thinking it's not the right thing. I'm going for my taser, but I'm reaching for my firearm. You know that's not your taser. Your brain knows, but your brain's not processing that. Because your lowest level of training, you're doing what you did repetitively, just like people pumped the brakes when they knew pumping the brakes would get them killed. Because it was done under stress. So you may say, what's the solution? Well, just quickly, the solution here, ladies and gentlemen, is constant, repetitive red zone training. What we did in the Secret Service Academy. Don't have people do things when they're thinking straight. Have them do these things under stress. We had the stress course. You had to do a 200-yard sprint down to the shoot house. The firearms instructors are screaming in your ear. You would have to then take out your pistol. You do a 50-round course. They're screaming, go, 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 screaming in your ear. There are threats coming, threats turning, non-threats turning. The target turns. It's an old lady. You're not allowed to. You shoot her, you lose. You fail. Then you have to go hide behind a car, pick up a shotgun. Everybody's Secret Service agent been through this stress course. They're screaming, do a couple push-ups in between. You do that when your heart rate's through the roof and you get used to operating in the red zone. And you can actually train your peripheral vision not to shut down as much, how to operate with a high heart rate and not effectively grab the firearm and pump the brakes like that under stress. It's the only way. You have to train in the red zone all the time.